Hello and welcome to Reclaiming the Rainbow. This week I want to have a look at a story that was in the papers about a week or 10 days ago concerning the Girl Guides. Here's the headline from the Mail that originally broke the story. Teenage boys who believe they are female are able to share showers, changing rooms and toilets with girls on girl guiding camping trips. Guides told to allow boys who identify as girls to stay in the same tents as girls. Controversial move follows decision to allow transgender girls born boys to join. The official advice published online applies to girl guides aged from 5 to 25. And it continues, teenage boys who believe that they are female are able to share showers, changing rooms and toilets with girls on girl guiding camping trips, the Mail on Sunday can reveal. Official advice to guide leaders also says members who are boys but identify as girls should be allowed to sleep in the same tents and cabins as girls when they are away from home on trips. And it continues, the advice, which applies to girl guides aged from 5 to 25, is published on the Girl Guiding UK website in a section on organising accommodation for residential trips. Under the heading Using Facilities, it states, the use of gendered facilities such as toilets can cause anxiety. Members are allowed to use the facilities of the gender they self-identify as. Asked by the Mail on Sunday if this also included showers, toilets and changing rooms, a guide spokeswoman said that is correct. Controversially, parents of guides as young as 5 would not automatically be told if their daughter was sharing facilities with a boy who thinks that they are the wrong gender. In fact, it's rather stronger than that. Here's the relevant section from the Girl Guides website. Guidelines around disclosure. A person does not have to disclose to you if they are trans. If they do, you should respect their confidentiality. When a young person is 18 or over, it is unlawful to tell other people that they are trans unless the trans person has given you permission to do so. When someone is under 18, it is still good practice not to tell other people unless they have given you permission to do so. And then in the information box there, it is not a requirement or best practice to tell parents that a trans person will be attending a residential event. So let's be quite clear what we're talking about here. The Girl Guides organisation has said that on residential trips, men and boys who identify as female but who have not undergone any surgery, any medical treatment, any hormone replacement, would be allowed to share showers, changing rooms, toilets and tents, in fact sleeping facilities, with teenage girls. And these are men and boys who are still men. They're simply wearing female clothes and calling themselves a female name. Now, the obvious objection to this is that there is a safety issue here, which is quite ironic given the fact that the Girl Guide's own website talks about child safety. Here's their child safety information for parents, and it says when girls feel safe they push themselves to do incredible things. Here's what we do to keep your daughter safe. And below it says, you can rest assured that when you wave your daughter off to a camping trip or her weekly meeting, she's in safe hands. Except what they won't tell you is that she may be sharing a tent with a teenage boy. She may be sharing showering facilities with him as well. And parents are going to be kept in the dark about this. It's not best practice to tell them. Fairly obviously why the Girl Guides don't want to tell them, because they know what the reaction of most parents would be. It would be to protest in the strongest terms possible, because this is putting their daughters at risk. Now, there's been a certain amount of reaction, a certain amount of pushback in the comments sections of some of the online newspapers that run this story, from defenders of the Girl Guides saying, oh, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think you're going to, have your daughters raped or sexually assaulted? Don't be so ridiculous. Well, no one's actually saying that. No one's making that claim, but there is a risk here. In the same way that there is a legal obligation on you to have insurance, motor insurance for your car if you own one. That doesn't mean that the government says you're going to crash your car, but they recognise that there is a risk, and the same thing with insurance and anything. I mean, with your house and contents. It doesn't mean that you expect to have a fire or to be burgled. Nevertheless, these events, if they take place, can be devastating, and if rape and sexual assault take place, and a woman is, or a girl is subject to them, they can completely warp and change her life. So it makes sense to take all reasonable steps to prevent something as horrible as a rape or sexual assault taking place. Even if it's very rare, it's simply not worth taking the risk. And telling men in frocks that they cannot share sleeping facilities or shower, changing and toilet facilities with teenage girls is a perfectly reasonable, and I would have thought the basic minimum common sense step to take to protect their safety. Now the Girl Guides organisation, certainly the chief executive, is claiming that it's the Equality Act of 2010 that's forcing them to do this. Here is a snippet from the Metro newspaper from January. This was following the announcement by the Girl Guides that they were allowing men and boys who identify as female to join the Girl Guides. Chief Executive Julie Bentley, who is a staunch women's rights campaigner, said this move means the organisation can hold true to its values of inclusion. She said Girl Guiding complies with the Equality Act 2010, which makes clear organisations providing single gender services should treat people according to their acquired gender. We welcome any young person who self-identifies as a girl or young woman. So she's talking here about allowing men and boys to join the Girl Guides without any surgical treatment, any medical treatment, any hormone treatment at all. And obviously the same now extends to using facilities. The equal rights extend to sharing showers, toilets, changing rooms, even sleeping arrangements. And she's saying it's the Equality Act 2010. Well, the thing to bear in mind here is that the Equality Act is 7 years old. It's a 7-year-old piece of legislation. If it had required an organisation like the Girl Guides to bring in this rule, don't you think they would have brought it in 7 years ago? I'm not aware of any prosecutions of the Girl Guides for not having had this rule up until now. And I'm not aware, maybe someone will correct me, but I've certainly seen no evidence that any other organisation for young people has felt the need to bring in this rule. So I think there's something else behind it. There's another agenda here which has got nothing to do with the Equality Act. I mean, one could easily criticise the Equality Act, and that's possibly the subject of another video in the future. But I haven't seen any evidence that persuades me that that is what is driving this. There's another agenda here. And if you visit the Girl Guiding website, it won't take you long to find out evidence of the agenda that I'm talking about. Here's their equality and diversity policy page: transgender and gender reassignment, support for all children and young people who self-identify as a girl or young woman, and for adults who self-identify as a woman. So transgender and gender reassignment. Girl Guiding aims to support all girls and young women. This is understood in terms of the way a person self-identifies their gender identity, a person's inner sense of self. A transgender person is someone who feels that the sex they were assigned to at birth, male or female, does not match or sit easily with their sense of their own gender. It's worth just pausing to say here that in fact nobody is assigned their sex at birth. Your sex is decided already when you are in your mother's womb, and to claim that you are assigned your sex at birth is simply anti-science. And then we have the supporting trans members page, what you should consider to support trans people within Girl Guiding. Make sure you include all young members, including trans people, in activities and residentials. And here's the LGBT members page, celebrate and support lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender members. How you can create an environment where young members and volunteers can truly be themselves. It's vital that Guiding remains a safe space for LGBT members, especially since they are still likely to experience discrimination elsewhere. Our guidance on sexuality and gender identity are designed to help you make a safe environment in your unit. And notice that comment about a safe space for LGBT members. That consideration for safety doesn't extend to other girls who may have to share showers with teenage boys or even grown men. And here's their gay pride page. Pride. Girl Guiding is very proud to support its LGBT members at annual pride events across the UK. Each summer we support a number of local guiding areas to attend their local pride events. Attendance at these exciting events reinforces the message that we are for all girls and gives us the opportunity to engage with a diverse range of people to ensure girl guiding is as inclusive as possible. So why has this change come about? Well, one fairly obvious reason is that in 2012, Julie Bentley was appointed as the CEO of the Girl Guides. So here's a report from the Times of that year, November the 15th, 2012. "We are the ultimate feminists," says Julie Bentley, new head of Girl Guides. A leading campaigner for abortion rights and greater access to contraception has become the new head of the Girl Guides. Julie Bentley, who has run the Family Planning Association for the past 5 years, said that the job of chief executive of Girl Guiding is the natural extension of her work in sexual health and calls Guides the ultimate feminist organisation. Her appointment marks a decisive shift for the Guides away from a bastion of traditional values and wholesome activities for girls towards a movement to prepare young women for the challenges of modern adulthood. What has become clear is that since Julie Bentley took over as CEO of Girl Guiding, she has pushed it in a very radical political direction. She's a self-identified feminist, and she's pushing Girl Guides in a very feminist, left-wing, radical direction, and making the Girl Guides a very politicised organisation in many respects. One example of that politicisation started in 2015, called Girls Matter, and the similarity of the title with another American organisation which is associated with extreme identity politics and mass violence in some cases may just be a coincidence, of course. We'll give the Girl Guides the benefit of the doubt. But here's what it was. Girls Matter was our campaign during the 2015 general election to call for the next government to help change and improve girls' and young women's lives. And then it continues, following a consultation with over 2,400 Girl Guiding young members, the National Advocate Panel defined the top 8 calls for change from everyone's views. And we'll look at the list of the 8 calls in a moment, but just look at that last sentence. Over 2,400 Girl Guiding young members were consulted. Well, that's out of 500,000 members. Girl Guides claim to have 500,000 members, and 2,400 is less than 0.5%. That's a tiny fraction of the membership and can hardly be called representative. Added to which, we see the National Advocate Panel defined the top 8 calls for change from everyone's views. In other words, this Advocate Panel, which consists of just 17 people, 17 people, went through all the responses, and then they decided what were going to be the top demands. They set the terms of reference, in other words. The Advocate Panel, I say, consist last time I looked of 17 young women and girls aged between 14 and 25, and these are appointed. They don't seem to be elected by anyone. They seem to be appointed from time to time by the Girl Guides leadership, and they seem to be made up mainly of political activists, and presumably they meet the political tastes of the Girl Guide leadership under Julie Bentley. So all this has the whiff of the Politburo about it. Anyway, here are the 8 demands that they came up with at the 2015 election. And it's number 7 there, which I just want to focus on at the moment: modernise sex and relationships education so all young people can make informed decisions and stay safe. As the website says, the law has changed twice to make sex and relationships education compulsory in England. Now, why should this be included on the list of 8 demands? It's a really strange thing for a Girl Guide organisation to start calling for. Well, quite a number of these other demands beg a number of questions. Bear in mind, however, that Julie Bentley, before she became CEO of Girl Guiding, was the head of the Family Planning Association that campaigned for sex education. In fact, while she was head of the FPA, Julie Bentley took part in the government's Teenage Pregnancy Independent Advisory Group, looking at, amongst other things, sex education. So this is something which Julie Bentley came to the Girl Guides already campaigning for. So then, surprise, surprise, a couple of years later, the Girl Guides find themselves campaigning for compulsory sex and relationships education in schools. Hey presto, what a coincidence. So still keeping with the sex and relationships education, and I'm going to use fairly gender stereotypical examples here, because apart from anything else, it probably get up the nose of people like Julie Bentley, and also because it happens to be true. Okay, supposing you have a daughter and she goes to ballet class, And I know a number of families who send their daughters to ballet classes and dance classes. Supposing the dance instructor decided that, just off her own bat, she was going to start giving sex and relationships education to your daughter while she was there having her dance lessons. How would you feel about that? Well, supposing you sent your boy off to the local football club to do some football every week. Supposing the football coach gathered the boys round and decided he was going to give them sex and relationships education. He wasn't going to tell you what he was going to tell them. Your daughter's dance teacher wasn't going to tell you what she was telling your daughter. There was no consultation. There was no notice even that this was going to happen. You think that was pretty odd, wouldn't you? You think that was pretty peculiar. And you would say, quite reasonably, that they'd overstepped the mark. You're paying them to teach your daughter to dance. You're paying them to teach your son to hone his football skills. But that's exactly what the Girl Guides have done. And here's the page on their website talking about sex and relationships. This is addressed to guide leaders. Tools to help you start conversations about sex and relationships. Notice that it's you to start conversations about sex and relationships, not the girls. Be prepared to talk about sex and relationships and feel confident in your approach. Forming and exploring relationships of all types is important to girls and young women as they grow up. Let's Talk About Sex and Relationships is a series of resources to help you to respond to their questions whenever they come up. They are also full of ideas of how to incorporate these conversations into planning for your unit meetings. Okay, so let's be quite clear. This is guide leaders being told to take the lead on starting conversations about sex and relationships with girls at meetings. And then on the right there, more in the Let's Talk series. The Let's Talk resources are designed to help leaders navigate the subjects of sex, relationships and LGBT issues, including gender and gender identity. Now, if we look at those 8 demands there, it says modernise sex and relationships education so all young people can make informed decisions and stay safe. Well, informed decisions, but informed by whom? Well, let's have a look at their website. How we made Let's Talk. The content of the resources was defined in consultation with girls, leaders and parents from all sections. The resources were written by a group of girl guiding volunteers with expert assistance from Brooke, the Sexual Health Advisory Service, and Stonewall, the lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans charity. Well, I've done a previous video about Stonewall and about how they're propagandising children in schools, and they're doing so with a large dollop of taxpayers' cash, thank you very much. And here they've got their foot in the door with the willing connivance of the girl guiding leadership. So I think this puts in context why we've got so much content on the Girl Guiding website about LGBT issues, and why we have had a policy now where trans women, so-called, men dressed in frocks, and boys dressed in frocks, are able to share shower, sleeping, changing and toilet facilities with teenage girls. Nothing to do with the Equality Act of 2010, as the Girl Guiding organisation tried to claim. It's actually to do with a radical LGBT agenda. And if you have daughters that you're thinking of sending to the Girl Guides, I would think very carefully before doing so. This is yet another institution that has done a great deal of good and still contains very many good people, but which has been hijacked by political radicals who have absolutely no moral scruples in exploiting the organisation, and I would say exploiting the girls, to push their own political agenda. Well, thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe. Whether you liked or disagreed with me, please leave a comment in the comments box. And I hope to see you again next time. Bye-bye.